it's also a moment of great pride to have another panelist of ours, and with heartfelt, experiences that I had with her, would want to welcome Dr. Preeti Parakh. She is our psychiatrist at the Kolkata Center. So Empower has 5 centers. One of the center is in Kolkata, and she heads not just the Kolkata Center, but the other 4 centers also. So welcome, Dr. Preeti. Dr. Preeti holds MD in Psychiatry from Banaras Hindu University and a senior secondary from Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research, Chandigarh. She has worked extensively with adults, children as a psychiatrist. So I'm very proud to say that after doing a specialization, she joined prestigious postgraduate medical education AMP Research, Chandigarh. She believes that addicts can be helped provided they are willing to continue with treatment. So she's really worked in that area, and added to that, she's also she also has expertise in treatment of general child psychiatric disorders like ADHD, so attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which we see in a lot of children in our schools nowadays. Mood disorders, anxiety disorders, which are extensively seen in boarding school students, especially the girls, psychosis, and so on. So among a lot of things that she's done, I'm highlighting a few. She has published many papers in prominent national and international journals and has also written book chapters. She's a life fellow of Indian Psychiatric Society, life member of Indian Association of Child and Adolescent Mental Health, Indian Association of Social Psychiatry, Indian Association of Geriatric Mental Health, and Indian Association of Private Psychiatry. So we are all psychology and psychiatry today, and we promise we are going to break some myths, and we are going to make it known that psychiatry is not for just, so to say, when we say somebody is mental or mad. It can be anybody who have certain challenges who may need certain support. And any confirmation on Mr.
Yes,
Sameer?
Nehal, he has joined, so you can introduce him.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. That's awesome. So our fourth panelist is Mr. Sameer Arora, Vice Principal, Shivnadar School, Gurgaon. And I had opportunity to talk to Sameer in person in some of our career counseling sessions. And yes, he's an absolute collaborator, a great leader, and a visionary, and an educator, I think, who is able to merge so many fields in him. So when students see leaders like that, they are surely looking at great role models. Amongst a lot of things that Sameer has been doing in career counseling space, I'm just going to highlight a few stuff. It's 24 years of school experience. He has been part of 2 travel-based startups offering experiential education and has thus traveled more than 20 countries. He also worked with National Geography channel for a program called Unlock R. And he's been with many awarded, in fact, some of in various domains, awarded for his distinguished services to Asian Regional Space Settlement Design Competition and Duke of Edinburgh Award. He's been also one of his favorites, I know, is the festival director when he served as a festival director for Sanj, Amritsar Lahore Peace Festival, which focused on peace dialogue in youth for both countries and reached out to more than 30,000 children, youth, and artists. That's amazing, Sameer, to learn about you. Every time, he keeps adding and he's doing novel things. So that's great. He's also been part of National Society of High School Scholars USA. He's recently been awarded Inspirational Educator Award by International Alliance of Counselors and Educators. He's also been awarded the Clay's Noble Educator of Distinction, nominated for Counselor of the Year Award, and Legacy School Bangalore has bestowed him with School of the Year Transformative Counseling Award. I mean, there's so much to talk, Sameer. So thanks for joining us on this panel. And I think I personally am going to have a lot of learning, besides, of course, our audience who's joined us. So welcome all, and I think we are ready to begin today's session. So are we ready? Apurva, Sameer, Dr. Preeti and Seema. Seema ma'am, all ready?
Already.
Awesome, great. So folks, for the audience, if you have any questions, you can put in the chat box and my team is going to help us with the questions. We have Chandra, we have Purva from the Empower team, we have Nupur who's joined us and they will be able to take us through the questions that you put as we go ahead. So for everyone, today's focus is about Minds Matter, thriving the culture in our school for mental health well-being. So how can we do that? That's what the panel is going to discuss. We are looking at 4 key objectives. We are looking at the importance of leadership. We are looking at the importance of the academic staff, that is the teachers, counselors, and the support staff in school in helping the mental health of children. And we are also going to be looking at how does Empower contribute in these areas for mental health. So my first question is, aimed at Samir. Samir, when we talk about integrating mental health support into daily routines, in your experience, how do you think you integrate mental health support in daily routine of students? What are some of the strategies you think that help maintain this continuity in after school hours as well?
Thank you, Nehal, for this question. And namaskar, everyone. It's good to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I think as Shivnada School, we have a fundamental belief, and I'm going to make a statement which is a premise of all that we do at Shivnada School. We say Maslow before Bloom. That means Maslow's hierarchy of needs is important for us, for children, as well as colleagues under our care, before we look at Bloom's taxonomy. And happy. So that's the premise based on which we've built up our ecosystem. And I think if I look at a whole school practice, one of the practice we do is in the beginning when children are walking into the school, we have a happy music playing through the week. And these songs are actually recommended by children. So we also have something called Thidakta Thursday, where children are, when they arrive in the morning, parents who come to drop children, and teachers are just dancing in the morning for first 15 minutes. So there is a happy start to the day when they walk into the school. And they feel really excited about, this is the song I recommended to school and it's being played today. This is the song my friend recommended. So that there is a positive vibe when they come to the school. The second practice is that when the classes settle down, we do about 3 to 5 minutes of mindfulness, as well as affirmations, saying what the day looks like. We do some visualization exercises with them. It's just to bring them together and set up the intention of learning and feeling safe as entire school community. So no matter you're a 3-year-old or you're a 60-year-old teacher, everybody comes together, close their eyes and just do visualization, mindfulness, and some affirmations about setting the intentions for the day. So this is a whole school practice. But I think at a different level, I'll just probably pick up couple of practices which we're following up, which probably our panelists can learn from and our attendees can learn from. In the early years, every day begins with a circle time, where students openly share what they're feeling, how they're feeling, which is also building up an awareness of emotional intelligence in them from a very young age. They're also introduced to small tools like Worry Jar or through stories like Ruby's Worries, allowing them to metaphorically place their worries in a jar whenever they feel something. So it's awareness, it's an action. And whenever they want to discuss that worry, they pick up the chit, they go to the teacher and tell the teacher that we want to have conversation about it. So it's a self-awareness exercise. It's an exercise in metacognition or reflection. It's an exercise in empathy and kindness. So which sets up the tone of the earlier environment. In primary years, our counselors remain visible, accessible during transition times, giving children high five, asking them how they're feeling. There are monthly circle times for children. Then we have a dedicated space for children in the structured timetable for them to meet the counselors. And also the counseling room is called heart-to-heart room. So also destigmatize around counseling as a word. So children are very happy to walk in any time, have conversation. Children also are encouraged to have conversation with the teachers that they need They feel the need to regulate their emotions and they want to go to the heart-to-heart room. So it's a very open conversation. So that muscle of self-awareness, that muscle of sharing that in a safe space with an adult is built up from a very young age. So that by the time they are in teens and tweens, it is destigmatized. And in middle years, what we do is, again, as I mentioned, they starts with mindfulness exercise. Every class starts with 5 breaths in, 5 breaths out, just self-awareness. Circle time is again very, very critical in middle years, and we lay a lot of stress on that. And annually, the heads of different sections do it for children. Principal, vice principal, me and my reporting manager, Ms. Monica Sagar, is director principal. We also do it with senior children. We also do it with staff. We allow them space to share what they're feeling, what they're experiencing. And that's how I think we've been able to embed it wellness as a whole school culture. We also have special assemblies, expert-led talks. We have a whole calendar of wellness for our teachers. In Emory University, there is a program called SEAL, Social, Emotional, and Ethical Learning, which our teachers are trained at. They use the tools provided by the university through the course in their daily practice. And senior years, again, becomes a lot of exploration around gender, sexuality, around how they're feeling. So I think giving them a dedicated space to have these conversations and coping mechanisms is what we try to do. So our approach is whole school. It's an awareness, it's exploration, it's access to the resources is what we try to do. But I think all of this is very, very important because it's from the learner's point of view. But how do you think a teacher who doesn't feel valued, safe herself or himself, create a safe space for children? So we also identify that teachers' mental health is of critical importance. So what we do for teachers, of course, each one of us have a social life beyond school, professionally, personally, we have aspirations, and sometimes we struggle. So teachers also have access through our central system portal, access to mental health specialists. So they have direct access. They can book appointments and talk to experts if they need any help with. In addition to that, as I mentioned, I and Ms. Monica Sagar, our director principal, lead circle time, beginning of the year, mid of the year, end of the year with teachers, as well as senior school children, where they feel safe to share what they're experiencing. In addition to that, in our training modules, in the cycle of 6 weeks, we have every Wednesday as a stay back. On the 6th Wednesday, the teachers can choose what they want to do. They can do performing arts, they can do visual arts, they can do sports, and they can do nothing, just sit. So the idea is, how do you institutionalize practices which talk about wellness? So that is across whole school approach we have in terms of making sure that our teachers stay safe, our teachers feel happy, our teachers feel valued, our teachers feel cared for, so that they are also enabled to create a similar environment for children in their classrooms and in the school ecosystem. So I'll stop here. This is just an overview. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. But anything you do as an activity and you don't institutionalize it, it's not going to create a sustained culture and dialogue. So whatever you choose to do, you got to institutionalize it as a practice. And that is when the whole idea comes up. And in addition to that, we have coffee mornings with parents. Like right now, this year's theme of coffee mornings is community parenting. That means if I'm struggling with my child as a parent, can I reach to another parent rather than just a counselor to figure out how did they navigate that?
Absolutely.
There are support groups for parents who have children with special needs. There are support group of parents who sort of doing single parenting. There are support group for parents who have experienced a bereavement or a death of a spouse. So there are within the community, there are ecosystems, and there's something very unique for Shiv Nadar School. We have something called parent collectives. We have a book lovers club, we have a mindfulness club, we have a music club, we have theater club, we have photography club, we have trek club. So parents are always active on the group and they're positively engaging. And on those groups, right from CEO to deputy CEO, in a lot of schools, the thing is the principal's number is not out. CEO's number cannot be out. Our numbers are all public. Anybody can reach out to ask for help. So we've institutionalized it. Rather recently, our parents did an annual production, which is called Midsummer Night's Dream. So how we've been able to build a culture of wellness across the school.
Awesome. Yes, Sameer, thank you. I think that's been an inflow of so many creative ideas. I'm sure all the educators who are here, I'm sure schools are doing something, so they'll have a lot of inputs. They'll be able to tweak certain things. And the best part is when you mentioning that we're looking at a preventative approach and not just a curative approach. So for all the audiences out there, it's very important to not just bring in counselors when a child has a problem, but rather create an atmosphere where awareness is happening so children support each other. And that's what Empower as an organization also believes in. So we have a lot of programs that we do with schools, whether you have counselors or you don't have counselors, where we create awareness sessions with parents, teachers, curate them, so on. In fact, Shivnadar School was one school where we did the teen mental health first aid program for students from grade 9 to grade 12. So it's an Australian certification program, and their students absolutely loved it. So that's really encouraging, Samir, with your inputs. I'm going to quickly build on that, and I'm going to, focus my attention to this entire thing of emotional well-being, not just in school but away from school also. So, Miss Seema, I'd like you to throw some light on how emotional well-being of students who are living away from home could be like, and how what could be those unique challenges they could be facing. Like we look at boarding schools, or even in a regular school setup, when children go back home, we're teaching so much in the school, but are they able to take certain things back home? And what would you as a school want to recommend, want to do, or you currently doing? Over to you.
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. So what happens is in a school like ours, which is a day boarding school, so children come in at 7, go home after 4 o'clock, and they all take the school bus. So this is also a unique feature in our school, which is the Heritage School, Kolkata. And so children are not allowed to come by their own transport. So we realize that there are, children who come from very, very affluent backgrounds. So we don't want children to, compare as to who wears a better dress and who comes in a better car and who comes in the most expensive car and who brings only pizzas every day and chips and, whatever. So the brands of, food packets that you bring. So everybody in the school is only allowed to come by the school transport, which is a bus, and also eat the food that we eat, all of us, in the dining hall. And the teachers, including all of us, eat together in the dining hall every day. That's the first part. Secondly, as far as emotional well-being is concerned, I think the most important part is that we have a very small number of children in each class. Because the teacher-student ratio is small, that makes a world of difference because the teachers know their students very well. Apart from that, we have about 17 special educators in the school. And we also have, 6 counselors, behavioral
That's
counselors.
a big number, ma'am. That's
Yes.
awesome. Yes.
And 3 career counselors in the school. So when we have these numbers, so children are, I wouldn't say they're under the scanner all the time to catch them do something wrong. We are always wanting to catch them do something right. So what we do is once the children come to the classroom, so say 1 or 2 months, they see the children and they realize that there are some children whose either their uniform or their their homework, classwork, there is something amiss with the children. Then the counselors and the special educators are made to sit there for about 2 weeks to observe them. So only observation happens. So once the observation is done, after that we start working with them. So there is internal assessment, there is external assessment. However, I would like to say when it comes to, a school where, children stay away from their parents for a long time, the first thing is that they miss their homes.
Yes.
They miss their home food. They miss their parents. All that is there. But for that, the best thing to do is to have an orientation program where what we do is we call the parents, we call the children, we call everybody. We make sure that the children are aware and we tell them very clearly that the food that you will get here is vegetarian, very simple dal, chawal, roti. Don't expect us to give you, puchkas and, pizzas and
Some of the
uh,
junk
you know,
and yes, yeah.
we giving you very plain, simple ghar ka khana, which is vegetarian. So everybody has to eat that. Everybody, and when they come for admission and they say, oh, we've heard so much about the heritage school. Yes, you've heard about it. Well, but you're going to be disappointed. Because if you think you can do what you want to do here, we are there to help you for every little thing. So teachers go out of their way to help the children. But there is a discipline policy, there is a send policy, there is a policy for every little thing. So you have to go through the policy. In fact, we have orientation programs. We go through discipline policy with the parents, with the children. Everybody sees it. And then we tell them, okay, fine. Now you cannot do anything which is mentioned in the discipline policy. You abide by the policy, and we are there to help you for every little thing. Say, for example, the other day there was one child who'd come from another country, grade 12. He'd just come in. 3 days later, he says that, he was carrying 2 phones. We are very clear about it. Parents can send the phone only when there is a letter. And we are aware of the fact that the parents have sent a phone with the child. The coordinator, the class teacher is aware of this. So the first thing that we did was, okay, take the phone, inform the parent that this child has come from a different country. He's probably not aware and he hasn't read the discipline policy clearly. So let's give him a chance. However, the parent comes to us and she says, please keep both the phones. I don't want them.
Right.
So basically, ma'am, what is required is, sorry, I digress from the point. I must tell you, well, parents have to be, the homesickness has to be taken care of, their food and everything else. They have to be oriented very well. There has to be very well structured routine so that they don't have the time to, get bored or think about, something different.
Yes.
And building a peer support system, having well qualified, experienced people to help them at all times and
Right.
go-to people for everything, every problem, any problem that they have. So they should know, and there shouldn't be any taboo on, going to a counselor. So because in
Right.
our school, children go and they say, ma'am, I need help. Ma'am, I need to ask a few questions. I'm not being able to deal with one situation. Can I please go and speak to one counselor, ma'am? Yes, go ahead. So
Yes.
thankfully, the taboo is not there in the school.
Right. That is so important. That is so important, Seema ma'am, as you talk. I mean, I'm hearing you, I'm seeing the passion. The point is also about simple thinking. I mean, having
Absolutely.
simple living and high thinking, because you are ensuring that no matter what riches you have, there are basics of life that have to be followed. And I think that sets the pace right for mental health. In one of the recent
You've gone
news,
mute. Now
am
it's
I?
okay.
No, no,
I
you are
am.
Now
not,
it's okay.
Neil. You're audible.
Oh,
I think,
my
ma'am.
internet connection was a problem. Sorry.
Yes,
No,
yes.
no worries. I mean, we are all in that tech era where today I was struggling to kind of find one piece there on when I just joined. So what I was saying was that it's very important for us to focus on certain core important areas in the beginning. I was reading certain news and the recent research that has been happening, which talks about that how if children do daily chores, their overall mental well-being is good. Like bringing responsibility, clean your own plate, keep your own things. I know some of the parents do that, but in the new age, the Gen Z is, sometimes does have a lot of arguments to oppose when certain things are said. But at the school level, I think when conversations are simple and we are good role models, it flows in. And we believe that curriculums, mental health curriculums, if they are run in school, like Empower also has a mental health curriculum, when you begin very early, probably as early as grade 1, and go on till grade 12, because each age brings across different levels of concerns, and there's nothing wrong in having those concerns. It's not wrong if a child says that, I'm feeling low. He's feeling comfortable, he or she's feeling comfortable to voice it out. I was also going through some of the studies by NIMHANS, and NIMHANS reported that, 40 to 45% of the children who live away from their homes feel anxious, and boys display more behavioral concerns. We also see research by NCRT which says that probably across our India as a country, only maybe 30% teachers feel confident in recognizing concerns in children and, kind of letting them go to counselors and special educators or referring them. That means another 70% does not feel confident. So while some of our, each of our schools could have a good strength and an area of weakness. So in today's this panel discussion, I'm sure the audience is able to take back with them what they can do in their schools and what are the learnings for them, like counselors, special educators. What is the difference between the two? They are not the same. While they can help each other, both entities are different. Special educators work in the field of remediation, whereas counseling is more about behavioral concern. And oftentimes, some of our children need both of them, not just one. So that's an important highlight that you brought about, ma'am. Thank you so much. And I'm going to move on, building on that point, to Miss Apurva Saini. And I know when she's talking, I've had the opportunity some time back to visit Bangalore International School, and we were also talking to some of the teachers, and we know some of the best practices that the school adapts. So, Miss Saini, can you share some of the key practices you have implemented to foster a mental health, like a mental well-being climate with your parents, especially, with not just students, but parents as well? Ma'am, you're on mute, probably, if my network is not.
It's been a while
Yes.
since COVID and one keeps forgetting about the volume. So thanks for asking, Nehal. I want to just connect us all back to the recent past. The signs of dissonance in our youngsters are very clear. And I think post-COVID, we've seen almost an epidemic. I think many of the teachers and principals will agree with me that every home was not a sanctuary. And there were many stresses. And of course, the lack of physical interactions and, or should I say, physical social distancing. And all this excessive social media has left its mark on everybody. I think that being an adolescent at this time is really fraught with problems. The expectations are way too high from families in terms of their careers, in terms of the amount of spend that a family does to, have their child join a quality institution and further their education. There's a whole lot of competitiveness, and all of this is taking a toll. And I think we as educators will agree that the educational landscape does require some reimagining for the sake of the children within that. Like Samir mentioned, I'd just like to also expand on the word practices to say that practices in schools are first an observation of a need, and then the implementation of a solution. Then hopefully along the way, there's an evaluation of how it works. Having said that, let me take you inside Bangalore International School. It is a 55-year-old school, and one that's carved a niche for itself as a close-knit family field school. And from a leadership perspective, I'd like to say that I think that's come about because the vision of the school is being articulated, or it is being realized, and the vision was a caring, connected community. My proposal, if I may, to the educators is that if you would like to realize something, then put it into the guiding principles of your school, into the vision, into your values, and into your school goals. And what we aim to reach, we generally do. So that will be an easier way. I think the climate of the school is very highly influenced by the school leaders, and the principals have another opportunity to create a light-hearted, ease and flow sort of environment. So let's all invest in that. At BIS, every year they select a theme, and this year they've selected well-being. as
Purva, can you have everybody on mute, please?
Yes, I'm looking into it.
Okay. So I think well-being as a theme has come about looking at the stresses in life and the complexities, and I think that's something we all want to aspire to. And therefore, again, making something very tangibly a goal is always a good idea, because then you can count down and see what all we did to realize that. Like many other schools at BIS as well, we have a curriculum, a social emotional learning curriculum. And I think it aims to equip students with tools that are lasting and that they can seek inspiration from for life, for their entirety of their life, hopefully, because they get embedded. Things like building empathy, building self-awareness, emotional regulation, etc. And I know we started the year with inviting a psychologist, famous psychologist from Bangalore, and Dr. Ashwini came and spoke to senior students about whether overthinking is a myth and whether one's perspective colors the reality and to what extent it does, and our experience of life. And they were very interesting conversations, and just through some visuals, the children took away very deep rooted meanings. It was lovely to have her. There are also some mandatory sessions, and I think that might be echoed in many schools, things like body safety, gender diversity, anti-bullying, healthy boundaries, etc. I'm just looking at a list of these workshops that we have, so I don't forget anything. And I think the staff and teacher welfare program is very key. For one, it aims to upskill teachers, and we started the year with a session by Empower, and it was about child and adolescent development and mental health issues, because there's a lot that's not known. I know, Nehal, you just mentioned something about the nature of mental health and what all there is for educators, especially, to be keyed into. I think there's a lot that we need to upskill ourselves and train ourselves in terms of understanding the various issues that they are facing, being able to recognize them, being able to assist with them. So there's a whole new world for us to aspire to. And of course, counseling for staff members is also available. We know the pressures of education world, and that's something that teachers avail of. But in terms of the parental engagement that you spoke about, I think there's always there's never an end to how much you can do. I think through small group sessions, or I think Samir cited some really lovely examples of engagement with parents. We also aspire to some. We had recently a session on substance use and misuse, and that was informative for parents, and also record these sessions and aim to send them to parents also, so they are informed about, of course, managing academic pressures. And that's something that not only high school, but I think from elementary people are in the same rat race, if I may use that word. And I think all of these measures are aiming to foster like an open communication between parents and staff, so they can approach people and say, this is what I'm observing, and are the counselors available for that talk. It takes a little bit of pushing, as many of us know. Sometimes families do perceive that as being a stigma or something that they would rather avoid the help of. But we can see that there might be some telling effects when help is not sought at the right time, and children are breaking down. I'm sure Dr. Preeti will elaborate more on that. So open communication channels is so key in the school, and that's something that we like to talk about. We've got a growth mindset program, and from early years all the way up, they've been indulging or investigating areas where the growth mindset is making a really big shift into what they can do. In fact, we had a junior STUDCO, we call it, the student council election, in which we had little children from grades 3, 4, and 5 talking about I can and I will, and I can change my thoughts. And it was just very empowering to hear them talk to themselves and about themselves in such positive terms. There are also programs like peer mentorship, where the seniors are going into the younger classes and having open dialogues, and these are not scripted, or with the young children about, how do you manage your studies? What do you do? What works for you? What doesn't work for you? What's your relationship power? How do you, are you attracting people? Are you finding it difficult to bond with people? And there's something beautiful about the way children talk to children, and also leads them to feel a sense of power amongst themselves. Of course, days like Mental Health Awareness Days are really beautiful days, I think, for just being very explicit, showcasing learning, talking about things. And I think talking about things just makes them so regular that we hope that one day we can just say, I have a cold and I have depression in pretty much the same sort of platform or manner. As a last point, I'd like to say that, there are so many meditative practices in the Indian culture, and
Yes.
these are across religions. And somehow they have remained at a spiritual realm. And I would be really happy to see these coming into people's lives as methods of managing, training the mind, because no one teaches us what to do with a niggling thought that troubles us, won't go away. Can it be purged? Can it be replaced? The simplest things about how to be a successful human being in terms of just having a calm mind is a whole, I think, is awaiting an education. And yeah, thank you very much. I think such conversations around mental health are required. So thank you for the platform.
Awesome. I think, one out of so many things that you said, and, I've been keenly hearing, and I'm sure audience has, I wanted to pick one particularly, which was about a belief system, because when we are educating people, whether it's teachers, parents, anybody, what we're really trying to do is change their belief systems. So it's a consistent effort that is going to change those belief systems, because they're pretty strong. Even if we are educated, like I'm a parent to an adolescent, and so much we say, oh, this is going to be like that. It just happens naturally because environmentally we hear so much. Similarly, in parents, it's all about, like, probably sometimes that my child can't have a problem. It could be anyone else who could have a problem, but my child can't have a problem. So even the most educated fraternity tends to do that. And we also see another spectrum where the parents are so much imbibing the pressure from the environment, where even if there is no challenge with the child, they will see, oh, is there a challenge? Average performers, children who are average performers, we see anxiety in their parents because they feel, oh, he's just an average performer. He's not a super performer. So, there are so many of such conversations that we need to neutralize, destigmatize. And when we talk about mental health, we don't want to even overdo it. Meaning, we do not want to create tension by saying, oh, there are mental health concerns in this generation and be mindful. All we are saying is that, as schools, as educators, as psychologists, psychiatrists, this entire fraternity emphasizing that just be open. If there is a concern, there's a way out. And I love the way you harped upon the importance of mental health and the practices, the growth mindset bit, etc., that you've been doing at your school. Because, and when you also talk about how you began with, training your folks, your school staff, basically your teachers, because we do see, like, NIMHANS has been doing extensive research, NCRT has been doing extensive research in this area, and they do feel that even while these trainings are on and they are happening, they are maybe not enough. So, schools like yours, when they do that, they become great role models. So I want to, take on from here to have my next question for Dr. Preeti. Dr. Preeti, you are a psychiatrist and you see students or children or parents from so many different schools, so many different societies, communities, classes, if I can use the word, and with different concern areas. So, how do you think you encourage openness and destigmatize mental health conversations among these stakeholders? What do you see? I mean, what do you think is the role of a leader in these settings? So, what would you want to share?
Nihal, first of all, thanks for having me here. This has been a really eye-opening conversation so far for me, especially what Samir sir said and Apurva ma'am said about their schools and the happy music, mindfulness. I really was not aware that some schools are doing so well in this area. So I'm really impressed and I'm also inspired, and I'm hoping that other schools will also take this up and imbibe some of these practices.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. When they both spoke and when Seema ma'am spoke about 17 special educators and counselors and then career counselors also. I mean, look how each of these schools is doing things in a way which suits their audience, which meets the needs of their audience as well. Absolutely. I have a likewise feeling. Yes, yes. Sorry, I came in, but I couldn't resist. So thank you for bringing that up.
And see, when it comes to working towards destigmatization, one thing that I feel is really important is to have communication between all stakeholders. So, what usually happens now is that parents are talking to school authorities, parents are talking to the mental health professionals, but rarely will we see a communication between the mental health professionals and the school authorities about a child. And that is an area where we feel that we are lacking. So we do have these kind of communications where we are participating in workshops, webinars, but can it be taken a step further when wherein the school authorities connect with a mental health professional regarding a particular child and ask for opinion, or at least discuss before taking major decisions? This is an area where I feel that we can do more. Actually, here I would like to share an anecdote about a case of mine. So this was a 15-16-year-old girl. I'd seen her a couple of years ago, and she was studying in class 10 and was going to appear for the board exams in a few months. And unfortunately, she developed a manic episode, and everyone in the school had seen the initial phase of that episode, and everyone was aware that she was behaving abnormally. So they don't understand what's wrong and what the diagnosis is and all that, but everybody was aware that there was some problem, the behavior had changed. So the parents were consulting someone, she did not improve, and they came to me after around 15-20 days. And even then I told them that it will take her a few weeks and she'll be fine. And she did start improving. But what really made me feel upset was she was supposed to fill up the registration form for the board exam in a month or so. And the school and the parents, even though she was improving, and even though I had told the parents that she'll be fine in a month or so and then she can pick up her studies and go on, they decided to make her drop a year. And the child recovered in a month or so. She was absolutely fine. Now my concern was, how is this child going to cope with the dropping of that year and then continuing in a batch which was actually her junior, and that also has mental health implications. So there I felt that had there been some avenue of communication between the school authorities and myself, maybe this could have been averted. And though I'm happy to share now that the child did well, she studied in the same school for one more year, and she has now passed class 10. So it ended well, but I definitely was very much concerned at one point of time that how will that girl cope?
Yes, I think that's a very important point you have raised, Dr. Preeti, that how often the schools collaborate with the external agencies, because now there are a lot of norms around what will bring board concessions to a student who has a certain challenge. And if those tests are not done in time, then it has an X effect, etc. And I think that's when I heard, like when Seema ma'am was talking about the special educators, counselors, etc. And if that number is right, it can really help. Seema ma'am, I wanted to, base this question to you, because you have a great strength of the SEN facilitators. So, what are some of your views around taking this conversation of special education needs students with parents, convincing them about what measures they should take, or guiding them after these kind of external reports come in?
So, ma'am, I think you would know about it that it is the most difficult part is to convince parents that they need help, that the child needs help. Because most of the time, parents are in denial and they say that fine. Yes, if you say that the child can't, tie his shoelaces properly, well, as a child, even I couldn't do it. So I learnt it only after I was about 7, 8 years old. Or if the child lisps, or if the child is not very clear in pronouncing a few words, the parents continuously say that there's nothing wrong with the child. This is in the family history is such that the child has been behaving. We were like that, so the child has taken it from us. So these things happen. Of course, I think the most important part is to have somebody who to have a support system which is qualified and experienced. So here what we generally do is which first thing is you need to sensitize parents, and you have to first ask the teachers also to identify certain symptoms. Are you with me on this?
Totally
Hello.
agree. In fact, so what you're saying is that if you are
So
studying something well and
yeah.
talking about solutions, then parents are going to probably have larger acceptance and easy acceptance.
Yes. So what we do is we sensitize our teachers and we tell them to identify certain symptoms, call the parents, have meetings with them, and ask them if there are certain symptoms, similar symptoms that they see at home as well. And
Right.
then we have in-house counseling and in-house we have assessments, because we who have, as I told you, we have clinical psychologists, and we have different kinds of behavioral psychologists. So they sit with them, and internal assessment is done by the special educators. After that, once they see that, for 2 weeks after observation, if they see the child still needs help, they ask them for an external um, assessment. That happens. Then counseling and cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, happens. We also have a grievance cell in the school where everybody, the parents, children, teachers, everybody can go to the grievance cell and talk
Hmm.
about it. Then there is something called SFS, which is student for student. Their children go and they talk about it. Then there are scaffolding is done by the peers and teachers. That is another system. Then we also have a system wherein once we know that the parents have agreed that there is a little bit of an issue with the child, then of course, as far as the academics are concerned, we have to first see whether the child has an academic goal or not. If the child has an
Right.
academic goal, we have again two groups here. One group is that group where knowingly we take a child, that the child has some kind of a special needs. And there is another one where there is a lateral entry, or where there is the system that throws up some children from pre-nursery to grade 2, 3, when the children cannot do it. So depending on their academic goals, either the children will be given accommodations in the regular ICC curriculum, or am I again moving to another level?
No, 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 no. Absolutely, ma'am.
You
This
see, why
makes
I'm
so
asking
much.
you this
See,
is because we have accommodations in Cambridge, in International Baccalaureate, in CISE, everywhere there are
yes.
accommodations. So you have to first identify what is the requirement of the child, and then
Right.
support the child. And then based on that, you give him a scribe, you give a prompter, you give him, you allow the child to write answers on the keyboard. You allow the child to have, what's it called? Maybe
A prompter
speech.
to get back attention. Yes. Extra
Yes.
time. These
So all
provisions.
extra time. So all these accommodations are taken care of, and then we work with the children. So basically, making parents to believe and to understand that there is a requirement, because we are probably helping a child who is dyslexic or who is autistic, and we're giving him some other help for something else.
Yes.
So then we're not doing justice to the child at all. So
Right.
first you identify what exactly is the requirement of the child, and then accordingly we can help in the school.
Build the
So
steps
that's
on
what
that.
we do. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely, ma'am. And so what I'm glad about here is that the idea of this session today is that schools can take back what they can do in their schools and bring them the confidence that it is possible. So here are some of the schools who are doing it. These are some of the challenges they faced. This is how, like, when you share about your schools, how did you overcome it, and what are the steps that made you overcome that? So, which is very true. Parents, yes, I'm reading here in the chat group, chat messages that parents are resistant. Yes, they are resistant, and they are parents, they are rightly resistant. The idea is to still, consistently talk about certain things and have a solution-based approach, which can change everything. Until we don't give them solutions, it's going to be difficult. In fact, there's another question that I had thought of, and it's relevant, ma'am, as you spoke. And I'm going to direct this question to you, ma'am, Apurva, ma'am, that do you think teachers are I'm not talking about your school, but generally in your view, in other schools, we see that there are challenges around mental health. So do you think sometimes teachers are also resistant to refer children to counselors? Like teachers don't want to take onus sometimes because parents are a difficult stakeholder. Do you think that could be happening, or a belief that oh, this child is like this, and the parents come from an X background, so probably they'll not be able to help. What do you think, ma'am?
So I think that teachers are naturally very proficient in creating warm, inviting, and participatory environments. However, they are not always well trained in identifying mental health issues, and they also have a fear for what they may say that's not correct, the words they may use. And so I think the aim of a teacher is never to diagnose, because we are not the professionals. It is simply to alert the school resources that we should look into certain behaviors, feelings, patterns, etc., and not let them pass. So, the manner in which schools are beginning to take safeguarding, child safeguarding, very, very seriously. And it is incumbent upon all teachers in most parts of the world now that if you see an incident that where you feel that maybe potential abuse is happening, you cannot legally ignore it. In many countries, it's like that. And I think
Absolutely,
the
yes.
same is also becoming true for mental health, that if you see something, please talk to somebody. And the school counselors, we also, with about 625 students, have 3 counselors, wellness counselors and guidance counselors are separate. So I think the schools are investing in professionals who know how to create environments, and also to have a walk-in policy that any child expresses an interest in meeting a counselor will meet the counselor, and there are no two ways about it. And I think the more that we are advocating for avenues for well-being, the more the parents are becoming comfortable. I recall a few years ago there was resistance from a lot of parents. Even now there is. I very honestly, there is resistance in many families. But after a few years, many of the families who do not seek help find themselves reflecting to and thinking of whether they had sought that help, maybe their child would have been in a better place. So things do tend to accentuate over time, if not addressed. And, so if physical health is being taken up with such robust and complex systems around the world, why not mental health?
Absolutely.
Is it a problem to say that I'm feeling anxious beyond the normal anxiety that people have, but I'm really feeling sad, and it's not just regular sadness. So the more we talk about it, the more we understand what children are going through. So definitely teachers have a lot that has been put on their plate. So along with, say, ability to assist with cognitive learning, they also now have a responsibility to assist with emotional learning, or
Right.
readiness to take in that learning. So there's a lot on the teacher's plate now. And I think teaching is naturally a caring profession. It's a subset of all other professions that are, humanistic. And so that responsibility readily comes on our shoulders. But
Right.
I do feel that having a clear pathway for referrals makes the roadmap very
Absolutely,
clear.
yes. So,
Yeah.
yeah, very pointed. Yes, clear pathway for referral.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, ma'am, while you were talking, there were some things that were coming to my mind that, globally, I mean, there are so much of researches that are happening, and we hear that, current average ratio is about 1:1,000, one council of 1,000 students we have, whereas it should ideally be 1:200 or 1:250. I mean, it could be even better, but at least 1:250 is what we should have, which we're not having. We also see that if there are enough sensitization programs with parents done, then those children find it easier to seek help. And the third element is where the teachers are well trained, and not just well trained, but teachers' needs are also taken care of. So when you spoke, Sameer spoke, Seema ma'am spoke, so for all three of you, one common thing that I see is where you're also talking about how you're taking care of teachers' mental health. Because when we say there's a lot on her plate, it also means that we need to take care of her mental health. So these, I think,
Absolutely.
important
May I-
dimensions.
May I just
Yes.
add, Nehal, that I had a point about how emotionally taxing dealing with mental health issues is. So if you have that on your plate as well, to make sure that children are ready for the classroom, then and it drains the teacher even more. So I absolutely agree with what you're saying. And I think that what teachers are grappling with now is how do we maintain continuity, or how do we promote continuity in learning with students who are facing mental health issues? Because I think even attendance is sliding for a lot of children who probably wake up and aren't feeling that good. So there are many questions for which I don't have any ready solutions, and hopefully in time we will be able to address them in possible.
Right, absolutely.
Thank
So,
you.
Preeti, Dr. Preeti, a quick question. Like, we've already exceeded 5:30. I know we started also a little late, but like this question was there, and I made it a point to write this. How do you perceive parents' attitude towards their children seeking mental health support? Like, are you at the clinic that you are based there at Kolkata, and even when you take a center roundup of all other clinics in 5 cities that Empower has, what do you think is the feel like?
There's still resistance, but it is not what it was maybe 10 years ago. So things have changed a lot. The pandemic did a lot for mental health.
Right.
Maybe it's weird, but it actually helped us in the field of mental health. But
Yeah, in fact, Empower launched its helpline at that time
yeah.
also. So yes, absolutely
Yeah, but
right.
the resistance is still there. And resistance usually is rooted in either ignorance or denial. So either people are not aware of what mental health is all about, or if they are aware, there is this denial. Mental health issues are there, but it can't be happening to me or my child.
Child, yes,
So
yes, yes.
these are
It's
the two major areas where we still need to work on. Spreading
absolutely
awareness and denial
right.
has to be tackled in some way, and schools can help with that, because if the school authorities are telling something to the parents, then they listen to the school authorities. And many times we get children who have been sent to us by the school.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. They've told that go get the evaluation done or see
Yeah.
what help could be needed. I get that. So I want to, Sameer, on that note, like another question your way, maybe we look at a one-liner from you there that what do you think there is resistance in children to take mental health services? Like, do they have a concern in going to the counselor or to the special educator? And if yes, then what way does one bridge that gap? What would we do to get the child to go to the room?
So I think Seema ma'am has brought in a very important point, that which is children with special needs and well-being, from that context, because they're important stakeholders who are less talked about. And I know Apurva School, Bangalore International School, is a phenomenal inclusive environment. So I think I would say yes and no. I would say yes for the schools where there is a lot of focus on building an ecosystem of culture of care, culture of compassion, and culture of awareness. where there is a
Right.
sustained dialogue between parents, teachers, school leadership, teachers. But there's no one answer to this. Within my
Mhm.
ecosystem, I know for a parent whose child has been diagnosed with a certain condition, it takes years for them to come in terms, and it's a journey for a parent to accept, right? You know, in our times, probably parents had 2 children, 3 children. Today, there's only one child, and the stakes are very high. And
Yes.
and the whole social media hasn't done any good for parenting. Parenting from being an instinct and a natural innate ability has become a science for which there are sessions and workshops.
Yes.
It's become
True
very
that.
nuanced right now. So I think from that perspective, I would say every ecosystem will have set of parents who will approach mental health from a very progressive and an acceptive point of view. Within the same ecosystem, there will be a set of parents who may be resistant to receive it. As far as students are concerned, as I mentioned, like for younger children, we build up a practice in the class where they put their worries in the jar. So sometimes the worry is about when they left home, mom and dad fought, because I think
Yes.
what touched upon it. Uh, a lot of our kids are coming from dysfunctional families, right?
Yes.
When they're coming from dysfunctional families, they're bringing their home into the school.
Mm.
You know, so when they bring their home into the school, does school prioritize their dialogue? And again, I continue to go back to the same statement, Maslow before Bloom. Where
Yes.
schools go wrong, I think, is when they prioritize only learning and learning over well-being, because a child,
Mm.
unless feel safe, cannot learn no matter what you do. So I think that's one part. A child's ability to walk up to a teacher and say, "Hey, I don't feel ready to learn, and I need to have conversation about something I experienced in the morning." Uh,
Mm.
to a child, a teenager who comes and say, I mean, I'm not feeling okay. I indulged in self-harm yesterday and I want to have conversation. So we have kids who walk up uh, to the counselors, and there is a lot of strategy and design around it. We've kept the counselor's room far away from everything else. So if a teenager has to
This
go,
confidentiality.
yeah, there
Yes.
is confidential, and also design, the whole
Yes.
design of it. You know, we don't call it
Mm-hmm.
wellness room or counselor's room. We call it heart-to-heart room. It's just come back and have heart-to-heart conversations. So small nuanced things can work. The only thing
Right.
I would say is that I think the awareness is increasing. Cinema
Mm.
has done a lot of good work around it. It's
Yes.
just that as an ecosystem, how invested you are as a community, as a school,
Mm.
is directly proportionate to the number of parents who are willing to seek and reach out for help. It's that simple.
Perfect. Yes, absolutely. On that note, I wanted to add, so because we have a huge audience here today, and you spoke about cinema. So Empower has released a movie Zindagi Nama on Sony Live. It's a collection of 6 episodes that tries to talk about 6 different areas of concerns which we see in life. So it'd be worth a watch for people who've joined today. Do take time out and try and see. It's more about observing how challenges come in people's life and how it makes them feel, rather than just having dialogues. It's a these 6 episodes are worth a watch. I'm sure each one of us would benefit. In the benefit of time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask all my 4 panelists one advice that you would want to give to schools to build a culture of mental health that can thrive great beings. So, one piece of advice that you would want to give to schools. Who wants to go in first? Anyone? Um, what comes to your mind?
Okay, I'll start.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so what happens is when you're in school, you don't really know whether these children are special needs children or not, whether they have some emotional baggage or not. When you see them first, you see them as individuals. And the only advice I have is that each teacher has to be a counselor, each teacher has to be trained, each teacher should be able to understand that the child is going through a trauma, the child needs help. When you see the child, you should know the child is not his normal self today. And you could just hold her hand and say, fine, today you're not looking too well, or do you want to speak to me? Is there anything that you want to tell me today? So that kind of a thing, that rapport that you build with people. So that training is required for that. And I think that's very important. Just one thing that I wanted to tell you, and I'm very proud of that, is, we've been doing some research in our school, and that research has helped us, immensely in knowing how the number of cases and number of children who are coming to us every month. And I'll give you the data. July had 30 days, 178 cases. August has 15 days, 199 cases. September had 30 days, 409 cases. October had 15 working days, 243 cases. November has had 30 days, 646 cases. December had 14 days, 358 cases. So we did that in our school. And after doing that, we also tried to, box them into various different severity of cases. And then they would be green, blue, yellow, and orange. So the ones where the homework wasn't done, where the children wouldn't listen to the teacher or wouldn't pay attention, they were like green cases, and blue and yellow. Orange cases were the suicidal cases. So we had, bifurcated them into different parts and tried
in terms
to
of
spoke to the
severity,
parents
yes.
about it. So I'm very happy that we're doing this kind of work in our school, and we are being able to, at least, not that we help everybody. It is an inclusive school, and we need to work with everyone, but we're trying. That's it.
Yes. I am sure Heritage School Kolkata. So I would, and of course, so to Apurva ma'am and to Sameer sir, we are there in 5 cities, and we'd love to have you at our centers to come and see what we are also doing, because we see a lot of focused work your schools are doing. So that's amazing to know. That's great that what you shared, ma'am. It's a great learning, I'm sure. Over to Apurva ma'am. Ma'am, what would you like to advise?
So I don't know whether it's advice, but I see opportunity. The first unit of the child is the family. And I think it is now incumbent upon schools to help train families about mental health. And with 13,000 suicides, I remember it was Ganesh Kohli who had presented that data.
Yes.
It's staggering amount of suicides in India. We really do need to reach out, and what we observe and what the parent observes need to be spoken in a dialogue, because sometimes we're just missing little bits of information and not passing them along. So, and I think we need
Absolutely.
your help as the experts, because without that marriage, I don't think we will be able to translate that effectively.
Thanks for putting that out loud and clear, ma'am. So we opened a center in Kota, and Kota, as we all know, I mean, it has a
Thank you for
different.
doing that.
So it's a foundation. So Empower also runs foundation. Thanks for that compliment, ma'am. And foundation would mean that at a very, very subsidized rate, which could be as low as 100 rupees, is where one can avail counseling, or sometimes even nothing. Okay, so we have 2 foundations in Mumbai as well, in 2 different parts of the cities to make it accessible. And I think when people, dignitaries like you, harp on these needs, everybody gets the message well. So thanks for sharing that suggestion, that opportunity of where and how we can help in mental health. And I'm going to invite Sameer. Sameer, what would you like to share with our fellow colleagues who've joined us here? Or
I started with that and I'm ending with that, Maslow before Bloom.
before, yes, I want to remember that.
So I'm just gonna treat it, it's just write down in your diary, just put it on your
Yes.
wall, that we care, I care, you care, and we care. And the school is a place where children come, as I mentioned, from very troubled backgrounds, dysfunctional families. Sometimes, like Apurva rightly said, a teacher is playing so many roles of a friend, of a caretaker, of a teacher, advancing child's learning journey while looking after emotional well-being. And I'm saying none of this is possible unless you create ecosystems and institutionalize well-being for teachers as well. A lot is talked about children, but not as much talked about teachers. A teacher who doesn't feel agency cannot be someone who can enable agency in the classroom. A teacher who does not experience what it means to be happy and what it means to receive care in terms of well-being from the institution cannot go and create those conditions in the classroom. So please start with teachers, and I'm sure a happy teacher will create far more happier children.
Absolutely. You know, there are theories on attachment and which say that the kind of attachment a child experiences from parents in the first 5 years is exactly the kind of attachment they will replicate with their spouses. So imagine how much impact these things have. And it's important for our teachers to feel well so that they are able to take that baton ahead and make others feel well. Very true. And over to you, Dr. Preeti. What would you like to suggest to our fellow colleagues who've joined us here?
I will just echo what Samir sir and Seema ma'am said. So if a teacher or a child comes to school with a glum face one day, there should be someone who notices and asks them what's wrong.
Right, right. Yes, yes. Just a simple like, how are you? Or is there anything to share can make somebody feel so comfortable. So that's great. I think so it's been 19 years as a psychologist, but trust me, every time it's a very different feeling when we engage in these interactions. And when you industry leaders, you are implementing some of the systems, it just bolsters our confidence that we are on the right path, and we'll be doing right things in near future and at least make some difference to people who come our way. So on that note, I wanted to share that at Empower, we do a program called Youth Mental Health First Aid Program. It is for anybody who's 18 years plus. So whether it's teachers, whether it's students, it's parents, anybody. It's a program that they can register for. And my colleague is going to just showcase that on the slide for all the educators. So please remember that Empower is part of Aditya Birla Education Trust, and therefore we are a social enterprise. 90% of the work we do is pro bono. The remaining work, when we work with premium schools or we work with corporates or any entity that charges for a service, we do charge them. So this is just a piece of information because this is a program we run, and yes, it has an X amount of fees. So YMHFA is for 14 hours. It's a 14-hour training that we would be doing online. It's planned on 16th, 17th November and 23rd, 24th November. So that's how we will complete the 14-hour training. It'll give you a certificate. This training is by Australia MHFA. Empower is the license provider of this program. And we're going to share the QR code as well. So if any one of you wants to scan it, you can do that. And we are also going to open the chat box. We will take few questions if we can quickly in 10 minutes because we've overshot our time and our panelists can help us take that question. So here's the scan for the QR code if you want to register for Youth Mental Health First Aid Program. And once you do that, we'll also put some of our folks' number in the chat box who you can connect with if you're keen on this program. And what do you think, Purva? I think people would have scanned it. Do you think you can put this in chat box as well, the QR code?
Yes,
we're gonna
I'm
just
putting,
leave
yes, I'm
that on
putting it.
screen for a minute, and then we'll go ahead and put the registration link in the chat box also. So you'll be able to get that from there. So if you are unable to scan it, that's perfectly fine. I think we can proceed to the Q&A right
Yes.
now.
Yes, sure. Great. So we are ready to take on questions. If anybody wants, please feel free to put them in the chat box. And Purva and Chandra are going to help us scout if there are any questions and direct them to our panelists.
Yeah, Nehal, we have one question ready here from Sharmista. So she's asking if a student wants to meet a counselor at school, she or he might land up missing a scheduled class. How do schools manage that?
Okay. Okay. Anybody who wants to take it up?
Samir wants to take it.
Awesome.
So I think different schools do it differently. There's no one answer to this because, for example, if it's a conflict a child has faced in a class and wants having difficulty in terms of regulating, if the lack of regulation is very high, the child's body language and voice will tell you how child is experiencing. And again, I said Maslow before Bloom, even if the child is retained in the class, will not learn anything in that period of time, allow the child to go. Some children are very high on self-harm tendencies. Retaining a child, trying to counsel at your own end may do more harm than good. But you can ask first question, may I help? I hear, can I listen to you? If the child says it's a small conflict, you can always defer the conversation later. That post this period, you can have a transition time, you can meet 10 minutes. But I think by and large, it depends on that situation. There's no one answer to this.
We hear you, Sameer. Absolutely. I think you've put it very succinctly, very well. Thank you for that. Yes, Chandra, can we have the next question?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So we are waiting for other questions.
So I
Participants,
see
if
here a question. This is school leaders, like a trouble having to explain and establish the role of school counselors. So how as leaders you educate over time on our roles and our professional capacities? I think this, if I've not misunderstood this question, it's more to do with importance of counselors in schools and the role they play. Oftentimes people don't understand that the change in a child or any person would take time. So if I go for counseling, I'm not going to have a change today. It's going to take a while. So anybody wants to comment on that from the panelists? Or yes, Seema ma'am, please go ahead.
So, ma'am, what happens is the counselor has to be empowered and has to be given all the support, because only if you trust the counselor can you ask her to meet the parents and the child. Because I, as a counselor, can come from a middle class background, from an all girls school, and when I come here and I see very affluent children, and when I see in a co-ed school the children are mingling with each other, so well, then that is my problem. I have to go revisit the vision and mission of the school every now and then to say that fine, my upbringing is this, and the school's vision, mission, and ethos is this. I
Right.
cannot have my say here, because this is what the school believes in, and the child needs this help. So
Right.
I shall, as a counselor, as an ambassador of this school, I shall counsel this child to do what is required to be done. So here the counselor has to be also trained to be able to revisit the vision, mission of the school, and to understand this is what the school believes in. You
Right.
cannot have your own philosophy here and start training people in a way that we don't believe in as a school.
Absolutely. Yes, it's
So
important to have the vision in mind and what is it that the school stands by. And also, I think relook at our personal biases. Like sometimes we may have, even as counselors, we may have some very strong beliefs and biases, and which we may probably come across difficult or intimidate the others. So absolutely, I totally hear you there, ma'am. In fact, there was a question that was coming to my mind that and I think Dr. Preeti, I want to address that to you. That when we talk about IEPs, individualized education plan, or when we talk about allied therapy like speech therapy, etc., is it that it's too late if a child comes after a child has is 11 years or 12 years, or do you think there's scope that change can still happen, like the therapy would still help?
It is never too late, but early intervention definitely is far better than having a child who has already spent years with the disability.
Right.
So
And do
early
you see that the
intervention
change
has to be
happens?
emphasized on.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Nehal, we have a next question here from Nandini. Sometimes it is seen that students or parents are more comfortable to open up to any specific teacher more than the counselor. Even the teacher does better too. What do you do in this case?
Can I take that?
Yes,
Sure.
absolutely.
Yeah. I think relationships matter a lot, and the route to the counselor should be through that teacher, because that level of trust and openness that gets built in allows the teacher, after a few sessions, to invite the counselor into that conversation and transition the parents to an expert. But very important to have absolutely anybody in school that you can speak to.
In fact, absolutely, ma'am. Chandra, that would be such a nice thing for the teacher that she's so trusted. And another element here is that when teacher, kind of guides this parent that, look, beyond this, there is another person who has this expertise. So while I will continue to give enough care that I've been providing to you and to your child, but there are certain specific areas that probably counselor can pick up and talk about. And here's also where I see that when we do mental health curriculums in school, like Empower does, runs a curriculum, it's called Minds Matter. So when we do these curriculum in schools, we also train the teachers for identification, and then how do you navigate that journey where if a child has to be referred to the counselor, and how do you really talk to parents, so there are mentoring meetings, etc. I think those are some nuances that could be very helpful when schools take these things up.
Can I
So
just add one thing very quickly?
yes.
In some schools, I have seen that the wellness counselor is a member of the senior leadership team. And by that elevation becomes really important to staff as well as to parents. So that's one way of establishing that.
That's a beautiful way, absolutely, that you're putting her on that position where she could contribute in effective ways, and there's more power to her there or him there, right? Absolutely. Great.
In fact, I wanted to add one more thing here. So what we do is generally after the teachers are selected, when we have the demo classes happen and then we meet them. So after that, meeting with a counselor is very important also, because at times we look at the teacher, from the point of view of what she brings in as an academician, as an educator, and what are qualifications, how she, teaches the transaction of the curriculum in the classroom. However, we realize that, later on, teachers have certain attitudinal problems which become very difficult later on to handle. So it is always nice to have the counselor speak to the new teacher and understand what the teacher thinks about and what her understanding of education is, and her relationship with the students and teachers would be later on, to be able to be a part of a team.
Absolutely, yes. I think teachers as counselors is something, while of course not completely in the sense of providing therapy, but teachers as those first aiders. And that's why we propose these programs like Youth Mental Health First Aid. It helps deep dive. Not that those 14 hours are like a Bible, but they are definitely a starting point to navigating this journey easily for teachers, and provide youths a good ear to give, provide youth with good listening ear. So I think we've addressed all the questions.
We have
I
more.
believe-
Can I take one last one?
Absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
How do we bring in the importance of discipline in the place where discipline and consequences are not given importance?
Okay. This is a broad question.
Yes,
I hope
yes.
I'll take that
Well,
up.
I'll break it out for you. I think we've got a restorative approach to discipline. Discipline matters. It's important because when you're running a large enterprise with 2,000 odd students, 400 odd adults, it's just not possible that you don't have any sort of bylaws to govern by. I think Seema ma'am has explained how she disseminates information about discipline policy, behavior policy in a very non-threatening but a co-constructing the shared understanding, saying why do we do what we do. At Shivnada School, we've sort of got a system wherein we've qualified them as cards. So what we do is, if a child does, we've qualified behaviors with certain cards and say, if you do X behavior, you will get a yellow card. If you get Y behavior, it's an orange card. And if you it's extreme behavior, which is red card, which means expulsion from school. We continue to have conversation with children. Why do we have this system in first place? That means it's giving every single child a chance or two to be able to reform their behavior and not just identify what they've done wrong, but also to support with counselors in the behavior modification. We've also institutionalized, sometimes that's seen differently, but we've also institutionalized community service. Any child who sort of violates the norms of the community, which are set up by the student, our discipline policy is also read by a student council and given feedback about. So they've changed a lot. So giving student an agency, saying you can have an influence over the discipline policy we form in school, but once we form, one has to adhere to. So we do these conversations. So there is a community service. Expulsion is not the best form. Standing outside the class is not the best form.
Not
But
at
how
all.
to build shared understanding and say, if you've sort of violated the norms of the community, would you like to come and serve the community for a certain number of hours and gain the trust again? So I think restorative approach to discipline is the way, because children are children. They are work in progress. They're not criminals. They're not offenders. But yes, we've had extreme behaviors where because parents ignored it long time about the behavior signs of the children, on repeated request, we had to part with some children because it reached a stage where it seemed like it's going to harm the community more than it's going to save. So it's one versus many then.
Absolutely, yes. Seema ma'am, yes. You wanted to chip in anything before you leave, or
No, just wanted to say
sorry.
it's been a great learning. Ma'am Apurva Seni, Mr. Samir Arora, I know him very well. And everybody else here, Dr. Preeti Parakh. Everyone here, it's been a great learning for me as well, because there are so many practices that happen in different schools. We think our school is the best, and we think we're doing a whole lot of stuff because we are an inclusive school, but we realize there are other schools also that do, certain things that are much, much better than ours. So it's been a learning. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. It's been raining cats and dogs, and I'm very grateful that we didn't lose this thing, because it was an intermittent connectivity that we've been facing since the morning. There's been this cyclone Dana, which has been troubling us since last evening. So it's been pretty bad. So I'm still in school. So bye-bye. Thank you so much. I'm going home now.
Thank you for joining,
Bye-bye.
ma'am. I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Despite this challenging situation, you were there.
Very
Thank you,
bad
and
it was.
travel
It was
home
very,
safe.
very bad
Thank you.
today. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks.
I would like to also extend my heartfelt thanks to Apurva ma'am, to Samir sir, to Dr. Preeti for joining us. I know we exceeded time, but I think we spoke so passionately. And I'm very happy to hear from each one of you. And you've added to my learning kitty. I'm sure the audience has. And I love the passion about mental health coming straight from academicians who are leaders. So it's a big thank you to all of you on behalf of Empower and me. And let's continue to do great work in our schools. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you, Purva. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. Thank you, Apurva ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Preeti. So we are closing the session. Thank you, audience, for joining us.
Yeah.
And hope you've learned and be able to implement your learnings.
Thank you.
from
Thank you,
Empower
Nehal.
once again.
I just wanted to put a note here. I have just added my email ID to the chat box. If there's any question that you have, if you would like to get in touch with us, please feel free to email me. I'll be more than happy to clarify any doubts that you would have. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for taking out time. Thanks, Nehal. Thanks, Dr. Preeti.